Throughout the season, Carson, as it was playing out, the offense did not look clearly as on point as it has looked over the last 6 weeks or so. I know you got a life, you got a wife, you got kids, you're up there in Idaho. I don't know how much you were paying attention to the Bucs, snap in, snap out, but was there a moment where you watched it and you're like, okay, I know this offense, I know how it can be operated, and I know Brady, and I know that this is now something they've gotten. Was there a moment where you had that watching them at any point?
No, I don't. It didn't seem to me from a viewer and spectator that's what happened. I'd be surprised if players in that team said all of a sudden there's a light switch that went on in week 10 per se. But the first couple weeks of the season, I was watching the system they were running, a lot of the plays that I used to run, and seeing some of the errant throws that maybe were called errant by a commentator, but really Brady thought that the receiver was going to break a little bit higher of an angle and they came out flat, or vice versa. Those are just you didn't get a full training camp, you didn't get a whole OTAs and a whole off season together with his new guys in that new system. So there was a lot of miscues early, which was totally expected. I think back to my first couple of years with Bruce, and in that year one, first half of the season, there were so many frustrating moments. And I think you saw that on Brady's face, the frustration with it. It's a simple play. It's a simple read. It's a simple throw. But if you're not on the exact same page with that receiver, it's an incomplete pass. And that gets really frustrating, especially when it comes up on third down or inside the red zone. And those things have been ironed out. It's not a month-long process. I was being asked about it earlier on in the year. I'm like, this is not something that's just going to all of a sudden happen after the bye. This is something that's going to take the entire season, and I'll bet you that those guys on offense wish they had 3 or 4 more games to continue to grow together and build what they've built upon. But some of the mishaps early on, the incompletions early on in the season, were totally expected.
What did you think of that play call at the end of the first half in the NFC Championship game? What did you think of that one, Carson?
I mean, Bruce isn't looking at the clock. He's not looking at the scoreboard. Bruce is not going to play defensively. He's not going to call plays. This kind of new age of coaches, these younger coaches in the league, they're so worried about analytics and all these different things. And some of these older coaches like Bruce and Andy Reid, man, they're not going to play defensive. They're playing to win the game. They're going to go get it. They're not going to punt or kick a field goal in certain situations. They're going to go score. Bruce isn't going to play it safe at that point in the game and run the ball to set up a nice chip shot field goal. He's going to take his shot if it's there. And Brady threw a perfect ball, and the rest is history. That kind of sent them into the Super Bowl going into halftime with that kind of play, and sent the Packers into their halftime locker room really reeling. You get scored on like that, at the very end of a half when you never expect that play to happen. That's defeating, and that was a big part of the momentum shift that you saw in that game that sent Tampa to the Super Bowl.
You just hit on something, Carson Palmer, that I love, is that these two coaches, I mean, obviously so much has been made about some coaching decisions in Super Bowl history. Sean Payton's onside kick opened the second half against the Colts leaps to mind. You got both coaches who are going to take that approach. I mean, Arians didn't come this far to do anything but just play it to the hilt just like he does, and this past week, just I can't wait for America to hear this guy at the podium. Last week he came on the show, Carson, and I asked him, hey, when you were quote unquote retired by the Steelers, if I had told you that this is where you would be this Super Sunday as Tom Brady's head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this was his response. Go ahead.
What are you smoking, bro? Give me something.
That's what he said, Carson.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, when I think back on my time with him and just the hours and hours and hours I sat in meetings with him, with the receivers in the room, the tight ends and the running backs, and I wish I was always taking notes on the X's and O's side of it. I wish I would have been taking notes on some of the quotes he said, because a receiver would run the wrong route or line up in the wrong spot, and if it's a multiple time offender, he would, I couldn't help it. And he's serious. He's not trying to be funny, but I would laugh out loud. And then when one guy laughs in a quiet setting like that, you can't keep your mouth shut. So everybody else starts laughing. But if I just would have taken notes on some of the one-liners he had to really make a guy feel terrible about himself for running the wrong route or not breaking the huddle the right way or whatever the situation was, his one-liners, just like the one you played, are fantastic.
What do you say when I said, how you feeling? He said, if I was feeling any better, I'd have to be a twin or something like that was another line he dropped. I mean, he's just
full of them.
He is one of a kind. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.